Good afternoon, interns. Soon to graduate interns. Congratulations on all of your achievements. And just when you reach the mountaintop, yes, you guessed it, there are more mountains to climb on the other side. And yes, we are talking about licensure here. So this afternoon, this is Dr. Sachs to tell you about licensure in Maryland and Virginia in particular. So for the next number of minutes, we're going to talk about that process, and in particular, the part of the process where you're going to be asking for help from the training department to verify your practicum hours. So this is the next hurdle, the process of becoming licensed. We're talking about Virginia and Maryland. These are among the dozen or so states, it may be up to 15 at this point, that accept documented practicum hours towards licensure requirements. The training department will sign off on these forms for you, and I'm going to give you the details. But first, just a bit of background. We have a federal system, as you learned probably in middle school, where states make laws for their jurisdictions that are individual to that particular state, and that applies to psychology licensing. I did go to the convention 1 year of ASPPB, the Association of State and Provincial Boards of Psychology, and they insisted that this was, is, and will be how licensure happens for psychologists in the United States of America. It's going to differ by state. So your source of information for getting licensed in any state is going to be the website of the Psychology Board for that particular state. That is the only valid source of information for that. So, having said that, by way of background, let's talk about Maryland and Virginia. And some details about the process of getting licensed. First of all, you can't begin the process until you have officially graduated. That is, your degree will be noted on your transcript. And then, of course, your CRP is finished as well, right? Right. So, then you will read up on the requirements on the website of that particular licensing board. And if you have questions about what you're reading, ask the licensing board directly. They are the official source for answers. Among the verifications and documents you're going to need to include in your application are verification of your internship. Now, your internship director is going to provide verification that you have completed internship. The training department, only verify your completion of practicum and associated practicum hours. So, general instructions. How do you get practicum hours verified as part of your licensing application? First of all, go back, and I know you've been keeping these, find your files with all of your time to track practicum hours summary sheets, the ones that were signed off by your field supervisor at the end of practicum. Retrieve the forms for documenting doctoral practica from the website of that particular psychology board, be it Virginia, be it Maryland. And we will show those forms in just a minute. Then I will send you attached documents, because this video is accompanied by some files, attachments that you are being sent. There is a Word document that explains things for Maryland, and there is an Excel spreadsheet that explains things for Virginia. This will help you translate your hours forms into the format for the form that that state's licensing board is requiring. Then, forward me by email your completed form. For Virginia, you need to include the completed Excel spreadsheet as well to show me how the computation happened to reach those numbers that we are going to use. I will review your documents. I sometimes get backed up and it takes me a month or so. I will either approve them, or if I have questions about the numbers, I will get back to you and we will discuss those questions over email or phone. Try to be as accurate as possible. Once I sign the form, I will send you Virginia's form to you in a sealed envelope with my signature across the seal. So I will need your address to send that to you. You will include that sealed envelope with the rest of your application materials that you are mailing down to Henrico, Virginia, just outside Richmond, to the licensing board. For Maryland, I forward that form directly to the board. I print it out, sign it, accompany it with a good standing letter, and mail it to the board, and then you mail the rest of your application to the Maryland board. And I will encourage you to wait until I have done this and let you know that I have done this, to make sure that the numbers I send on my form are the same as the numbers you are going to send on the forms that you send to Maryland's board. So definitely wait on that. Okay, so with that as background, now let's talk about Virginia. So, this is quoted from the Virginia Psychology Board regulations. An applicant for a license may fulfill the residency requirement of 1,500 hours or some part thereof in the pre-doctoral practicum supervised experience. So, you used to be you needed a postdoc of 1,500 hours. Now, all or part of those 1,500 hours can be made up through documented practicum experiences. So, how do you do that? So, they have standards for practicum experiences. I'm not going to read all of this, but it has to include certain categories of activity and certain numbers of hours doing this. Face-to-face direct client services makes sense. Service-related activities, scoring, reporting or treatment note writing, and consultation related to those face-to-face direct services. Supporting activities, time spent under the supervision of the face-to-face direct services and service-related activities, provided on-site or in the academic department, which is talking about our practicum seminars, as well as didactic experiences. So those kinds of things are required by Virginia. And so then they have ratios and numbers that apply here. So I'm not going to go through all of that, but rather I'm going to show you Virginia's form, and I'm going to show you the Excel spreadsheet that's going to help us do this. So, this is what Virginia's form looks like, and the title of it is Verification of Pre-Doctoral Supervised Practicum Hours. So the word practicum clues us in as to what it is, and so you're going to be filling in the top part with your name, the names of your practicum sites, your social security number, or your student ID number. And then there are various categories of numbers in letter A, B, C, D, E that are going to be filled in at the bottom. How are we going to get those numbers? That's where the spreadsheet comes in. So I will open that. And this is going to take just a second to open up. This is a form that is in one of your attachments accompanying this video, and it is a form which you are going to fill out for me and send me back as a completed file. And this will be how we convert your time to track hours into the hours for those categories that we just saw on the Virginia form. So, here we go. We'll be there just a minute and we'll look at this. Okay, up at the top we have a replica of what you would see on the Virginia form. Remember, A, B, C, D, E. How are we going to get these numbers? Right now they are zeros. Well, it turns out that there are formulas here that will generate those numbers. okay? There are formulas. And so this is the part of the sheet that you need to look at. For your practicum 1-2 placement, fill in your site name, the total hours, the number of assessment hours, intervention hours, etc. The total will be computed. Then you will fill in various categories of support hours and supervision hours, again from your time to track summary sheet. This section of the form, when you fill in those hours, will compute summaries on the right, which will then populate the section at the top of the form. So we will eventually have numbers there, and that is what you will send to me, and I will transfer those numbers into Virginia's form. I hope that's clear to everyone, and let's go back to that form one more time. Yeah. So again, we're going to get this A, B, C, D, and E from the Excel spreadsheet that you sent me. So that's what I'm going to tell you about the Virginia process, and that's all you need to know right now to deal with that. Let's move on to the Maryland process and talk about that. Now, applicants from practice-oriented programs, and we are one, need a total of 3,250 hours of supervised professional experience that they may accrue in a number of ways, some combination of the following. And they list practica, externships, and something else called post-internship pre-doctoral experience. That is, if you remain in ABD status, don't finish your CRP, you could accrue some hours in that way. But what I will tell you is, your internship has 2,000 hours. We require that here at ASPP. So you are 2,000 hours towards your 3,250. Then let's talk about your doctoral practica. You have, chances are, you have 1,200 or more. You definitely have to have 1,200 because we've required you to have 2 600-hour experiences. If you even have 50 hours extra over that, then you're going to meet this number, 3,250 hours. So, the parts that you will need to document are going to be your internship, and your internship director, again, will document that to the Maryland board, and your practica or externships, and that's the form that we're going to look at now, that I'm going to verify for you and send to the Maryland board. That will get you to that total that you want to get to. So, let's find that. Here we are. Now, Maryland, in its infinite wisdom, has the longest title for a form that I have ever seen, and that title is Reference Cover Sheet, Practice-Oriented Doctoral Programs, Pre-Internship or Pre-Doctoral Post-Internship Supervision, Academic Training / Program Director Form. Okay, this is where you put your practicum hours, send it to me, I sign it, and send it to the Maryland board. That's the simple version. Okay, so after completing the identifying information on page 1, we will see if we can scroll to page 2 once the computer lets us do that, and we will show you how the Maryland form is different from the Virginia form that we just saw. It gets us to the same place, but in a different way. On the Maryland form, you're going to list your hours for each of your practica on a separate sheet, on pages 2, 3, 4, 5, however many you need. Then you're going to do a summary hours form, adding those hours together, starting on page 8 of this form. Okay? So that is how this works, and I will just show you page 2 so you get a flavor for this. Let's see, can I scroll? Trying to scroll. Okay. So, name and address of the facility, supervisor's name and title, etc., etc. This was a pre-internship experience. It's a practicum. So, describe the nature and extent of supervised activities, and you're going to fill in hours in these various boxes. This is a fillable PDF form. So Maryland, in its wisdom, has invented Group A, small letter A, B, C, D, then Group B, lowercase a, b, c, d, and group C, lowercase a, b, c, and d. Crazy, right? Crazy making. Well, looking at this, I did two things. First of all, I wrote to the board beforehand and I said, please don't do this. And they wrote back saying, no, we're going to do it. We think this is the best way to do practicum hours so that we know that you had a quality and quantity sufficient to qualify for licensure. So they went ahead and did it anyway. So once they did it, I decided to make a little guide sheet for you on how to report these hours on your Maryland licensure forms. So, what you have on the APIC and the time to track forms do not correspond to groups A, B, and C. So we have to convert. So we have made a conversion table. If you have intake interviews or structured interviews, they go in group B. All other intervention and assessment hours, face-to-face, that you've had will go in group A. Support hours will go, the assessment report writing is in group B, and the psychological assessment, scoring, and interpretation are in group B. All other support hours are going to be in group C. Then when we're going to supervision, it gets a little bit trickier. Individual supervision by a licensed psychologist, psychology intern, or postdoc. Divide those any way you want, maybe 50-50, among group A, small letter a, and group B, small letter a. Individual supervision by other than a licensed psychologist, you'll divide the total among group A, small letter b, and group B, small letter b. Then group supervision you're going to include in group C, A, small letter a if it's by a psychologist, B if it's supervised by somebody else. So you don't need to memorize this now. That's why I've sent you this sheet. It's an attachment, and that will help you start with your time to track forms and then put this onto the Maryland form. And you are to fill in these numbers on the Maryland form, send it to me for signature. Now, on the Maryland form, I do also want to show you that after you filled in these various pages with your practicum experiences, site by site by site, there is a totals page, which is page 8, where you take supervised experience number 1, which happens to be page 2, put in the service-related activities total, put in the supervision total, and put in the total hours total. Now they have, in their wisdom, concocted a large, an uppercase A, uppercase B, and uppercase C that don't correspond to the earlier pages. But anyway, so again on the guide sheet I have told you how to make sense of this, and that is as follows. In most cases, all of your practicum hours will be entered in section uppercase A, because your work was supervised by a licensed psychologist. Supervised experience 1 will have your numbers from page 2, supervised experience number 2 will take your numbers from page 3, etc. Add the numbers, enter them into the boxes. Some of these boxes will populate automatically. So that will make this summary page a little bit easier for you. So that's what I'm going to say about Maryland. This is an introduction so that you don't get put off unduly when you sit down and actually look at these forms. So, I want to wrap up just with a few words of advice in general about your postdoctoral experience. And that is, first of all, get postdoctoral supervision and document it. Frequent question, especially for people who are trying to get licensed in Maryland or Virginia, is, oh, now I have enough hours from my practicum to apply to the board right away. If they approve my forms, then I will take my exams, I will become licensed there. I don't need postdoctoral supervision, do I? Well, strictly speaking, the board might license you, that's right, given the experiences you've had to date of supervised experience. However, important reasons to get postdoctoral supervision. Number one, it will make you a better professional. Do you know everything? No. Do I know everything? No. Am I in supervision now? Yes. Should you be in supervision now? Probably so. This will also help you to get licensed in other states that continue to require supervised postdoctoral practice. Are you interested in getting licensed in DC? Are you interested in getting licensed in Pennsylvania or New Jersey or New York or any number of other states? Most of the states require postdoctoral supervision. So get that supervision, document it, keep in touch with that supervisor for that circumstance, and a lot of us are mobile. When we move to another state and want to get licensed there, we need that documentation to show we had supervised postdoctoral experience. So that's my advice number one. Keep getting supervision. Advice number two, before you take the EPPP, make sure to study. Dr. Sharpless and others have studied the EPPP. They've studied not only the questions on the EPPP, but the process of passing the EPPP. And the recommendation is 100 hours minimum study. Now, fortunately for all of us, the decision of ASPP nationally, all our clinical programs, do give you access to those study materials upon graduation. So do contact Dr. Lynch about that, and you can get your EPPP study materials once you have actually officially graduated. So start putting in your 100 hours minimum, start taking the practice tests, see how you're scoring, see what the cutoff scores are in the states you're interested in becoming licensed in, and let's pass this the first time. Let's pass this the first time, again, for two reasons. One, you don't want to have to study for this and go through taking the exam a second time. And secondly, our program's pass rates are reported nationally, and we want to have our program appear in a good light, that we have a high pass rate, don't we? We want that kind of a reputation as a program. So this is a way in which you can help the reputation of our program and you yourself. Study your 100 hours minimum, and then take your EPPP. Number three, last point, stay in touch with us. We do want to know when you get licensed, and we want to follow your career successes. Dr. Lynch has a LinkedIn group for graduates. He's sending job announcements frequently. I'm getting many inquiries from practices, principally in this area, but sometimes from far away as well, asking for postdocs, recent graduates, newly licensed clinicians, et cetera, to join their practices, to get jobs in their agencies, et cetera. So you are in demand and will be in demand, and we want to help connect you with those opportunities. And I might add, Dr. Lynch and the training committee also have started some CE events for graduates, some of which are on site here, and some of which also have webinar access. So that's another thing about our connection that we want to continue. So again, this was our introduction to licensure in Virginia, licensure in Maryland. Hope this has been helpful, and I will, I'm sure, hear back from those of you who are applying there. Have a great day, and again, congratulations on your achievements.